It's Greg here with MaritimeGardening.com. It's almost the end of November, and I thought it made sense to do a video on when to harvest your frost-tolerant green. Most frost-tolerant greens, talking kale, Swiss chard, that sort of thing, their flavor improves once they've had a few frosts. And now that it's almost December, we've had a lot of frosts, and you know, the ice on my goldfish pond is frozen this morning. It's been like that the last few days. I've had a lot of nights where it's you know, it's still in the single digits, but you know, below freezing every night. So it's getting cold, and most frost-tolerant greens, their flavor dramatically improves when that's the case. So it makes sense to leave them out. But there's a point past which there's no real, you're not gaining anything by leaving them out, right? The plants are surviving, but at some point they won't survive. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit, just go around the garden. All right, so let's have a look. So here we have a bed full of Swiss chard right behind Mr. Salt, keeping an eye on things in the garden. And they're nice, healthy Swiss chard. And they're still hanging in there, but you can see they're all laid down. And all the greens in my garden this morning are laid down like this. Now, chances are, I expect, over the course of the day, as I think it's going to be above zero, above freezing today, they'll thaw out. I don't think these plants are dead. There's a level of coldness they can't take, which just kills them. But I think these plants are still alive. And at some point during the day, the soil will thaw out a little bit, the plants will thaw out a little bit. They'll start drawing up moisture from the ground, and they'll pick right back up, and they'll look alive again, right? But when you start seeing your greens laid down like this in the morning, to me, they're kind of done growing. They're really not. They're just surviving the cold, and certain ones will actually just not make it. And the first green in my garden, I mean, this time of year I've got kale and Swiss chard. That's it. I got a little bit of broccoli, different kinds of kale and Swiss chard, but I find the kale is much tougher than the Swiss chard. So, you know, it's really time to pull this out and, you know, blanch and freeze it for the winter. I got videos on how to do that. Okay, so certainly there's no point in delaying removing your Swiss chard. You can see some of it is starting to go a little bit, right, with the frost damage. I mean, the Swiss chard is frost tolerant, but it's not frost invincible, whereas to some extent kale is. But anyway, it's all laid down, and it's really time to start pulling it out. Let's have a look at the kale. Now here's a nice bed of kale here. You can see a lot of the kale doesn't have the leaves on the stems. I send my kids out here to, I'll say, go outside and pick a bowl of kale, and they'll just pull them off like that. They'll de-leaf the stems like that, and just leave them like that. That's okay. You know, I would prefer that they remove all the sort of spent stems off like that. But I don't know how many of you have raised teenagers, but they kind of do their own thing sometimes, and there's a point where you get bossy, and there's a point where you just take it easy. Anyway, you can see how they're laid down, right? Look at this kale over here, laid down flat. Not these kale a few weeks ago were 2 feet high, and now they're just bent right down. Same with this kale here, on the ground. It's kind of on the ground, right? Look at all this kale over here. It's all laid down, right? So it wasn't, I mean, there's different varieties of kale. You can see I've got a curly kind over there. It's a bit more erect, but even that is more laid down, right? So that's just the cell structure being affected by the cold temperatures. You know, at some point today they'll pick back up a little bit, but see, they're all laying on the ground. They're picking up dirt. There's really no point. I mean, I can leave some of these out here just out of laziness, right? But this is the time of year you want to start bringing these things in. Here I've got my parsnips. You can see they're all laid down flat. It almost looks like someone took herbicide to the bed, and that wasn't the case. These were growing just fine. Once it started getting really cold, they just laid down. Plants are still alive, and I got some nice parsnips in here, but it is probably time to start thinking about harvesting these before they get frozen in place. We keep having these nights where it's below freezing. The soil is going to freeze up, and they're going to be impossible to get out. And so I'm going to put in a good afternoon harvesting these. The same is the case with these Carrots over here. I got lovely, big, fat carrots in this garden. But you can see they're all laid down, right? And to me, that's the plant saying, look at that one. Look at the size of that. Almost 3 inches. Anyway, when they're laid down like that, to me, that's the plant saying, I'm done. It's too cold. I can't do this anymore, right? So, you know, that's when, you know, I always give the advice of living these sort of cold hardy plants out, because they change their chemical composition and become sweeter and better tasting. But there's a point where there's really no more gains to be found. And when they're all laid down like this, to me, that's the end of it. That's when you really, you know, if you've been putting off harvesting, you know, like it's always good to give them some frosts. I tend to give them maximum frosts out of just sheer laziness. As a result, I get really good tasting vegetables, but sometimes I get stuck where I'm using a pickaxe to get them out of the ground. Right? So yeah, time to harvest. Anyway, just a quick little video on when to harvest your frost-tolerant plants. They know when they're done, and it's usually pretty obvious that they're done. And there's really not much to be gained when they're all laid down like that. You can leave them out, you know, some of them will go. I mean, I've left my kale out as late as January some years just to see what happens. But there's a point past which where the ground freezes and the plant can't draw water up into its you know, foliage, and the plants just, they start looking sunburnt and dead because they can't rehydrate themselves. They dehydrate and they die. So there's no point after that. And you really want them at their peak, right? You leave them out as long as you can, and you bring them all in. This is it for me, where I am anyway. The plants are telling me they're done. It's time to get to work and get blanching and freezing and get everything put away for the winter. So hope you found it interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. Until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching. Hey, if you want to help support everything I'm doing here, go to Vessies.com to buy whatever you need for your garden this year. And use my coupon code GAVS23 to get free shipping as long as there's a pack of seeds in the order and there's no oversized items in the order. Check out the description box of this video for details. You can buy everything you need from Vessies. They have seeds, fruit bushes and trees, soil amendments, pest solutions, tools, clothing, and lots of other stuff too. So yeah, if you want to help support everything I'm doing here and they sell something you need, buy it from them using my coupon code, and happy gardening.